Triple H didn't punish Nick Aldis, he gave HIM permission. Here's what that actually means. Nick Aldis hit a WWE superstar with a championship belt, cost him a spot in the SummerSlam main event picture, and got into an actual brawl in front of fans the very next day, and Triple H's response was not a suspension. It was not a fine. It was not even a stern warning. Triple H looked at everything Nick Aldis had done, and instead of punishing him, he sanctioned a match. He handed Aldis exactly what he wanted. Think about what that actually tells you. When the man running this entire company watches his general manager strike a competitor with a title belt and responds by rewarding him with a match instead of disciplining him, that's not neutral booking. That's an endorsement. Triple H just told the entire wrestling world, without saying it outright, that he believes Nick Aldis was justified, that after everything Gunther has put him through, this retaliation was earned. And here's what should make you rethink everything you assumed about this matchup. Nick Aldis is not some paper-pushing executive playing dress-up as a tough guy. This is a former world champion, a man who has held real championship gold in this industry before he ever sat behind a desk. He hasn't competed since July of 2023, which means he's been sitting on 3 years of professional restraint, 3 years of holding back, and Gunther just gave him every reason in the world to let all of it out at SummerSlam. Comment below right now and tell me if you caught what Triple H's decision actually means, and stick around, because I'm walking you through everything that happened at Fanatics Fest, why this match got sanctioned on the spot, and why I don't think Gunther has any idea what he's actually walking into. Let's get into it. Let's rewind to where this most recent chapter of the story actually starts, because everything that happened afterward stems directly from what took place at Saturday night's main event. At Madison Square Garden on July 18th, Gunther appeared to have a tag team match completely under control, positioning himself for a victory that would have opened the door to a main event spot at SummerSlam. And then Nick Aldis got physically involved, striking Gunther with the WWE Championship belt at exactly the moment it mattered most, disrupting the finish, and allowing CM Punk and Cody Rhodes to secure the win instead. That single moment cost Gunther everything he'd been building toward. No SummerSlam main event spot, no championship opportunity, just the reality that a general manager had personally, physically, taken it all away from him. Now here's where things escalate into something far bigger, because the fallout from that MSG interference didn't stay contained to backstage segments or in-ring promos. It spilled into a public event. The following day at Fanatics Fest, Gunther confronted Triple H directly, demanding justice for what had happened. Think about how significant that is, Gunther going over everyone's head, straight to the top of the company, insisting that something be done about Nick Aldis' actions. And in the middle of that confrontation, Aldis himself appeared. What followed was an actual brawl, right there at a public fan event, in front of everyone in attendance. No scripted arena setting. No controlled environment. Just raw, unfiltered chaos breaking out because these two men could not be in the same space without it turning physical. And that's when Triple H made his decision. Right there, in the immediate aftermath of that brawl, he sanctioned the match between Nick Aldis and Gunther for SummerSlam 2026 in Minneapolis. Here's the piece of this entire story I think deserves the most attention, because it's easy to miss if you're just watching the surface-level events unfold. Triple H had every opportunity to treat Nick Aldis' actions as a problem that needed to be corrected. He could have suspended him for striking a competitor with a championship belt. He could have fined him for the unsanctioned brawl at a public event. He could have publicly reprimanded him for conduct unbecoming of a general manager. Instead, he did none of that. He sanctioned a match. Think about what that decision actually communicates. By choosing not to punish Aldis, and instead giving him exactly what he wanted, a match against the man who's been tormenting him, Triple H effectively handed Nick Aldis the moral high ground in this entire conflict. After weeks of Gunther assaulting him, disrespecting him, and repeatedly targeting him, the head of this company looked at the situation and decided that Aldis fighting back, even in this dramatic and physical way, was justified. That's not a neutral booking decision. That's institutional backing. Triple H just told the entire wrestling world, through his actions rather than his words, that he believes Nick Aldis has earned the right to settle this himself. Now let's address the elephant in the room, because I think a huge number of fans are making the same mistake heading into this match, treating Nick Aldis like he's simply a suit who happened to get lucky with one belt shot. That is a significant misread of who this man actually is. Beneath the general manager role, beneath the business attire and the office politics, Nick Aldis is a seasoned veteran and a former world champion. This is someone who has held real championship gold in this industry, someone with genuine in-ring pedigree long before he ever sat behind a desk making matches for other people. Yes, he hasn't competed since July of 2023, but think about what that gap actually represents. That's not rust in the traditional sense. That's 3 years of a proven competitor sitting on his hands, forced into a professional, administrative role, watching competitors like Gunther operate with impunity while he had to maintain composure and order. 3 years of restraint from a man who knows exactly how to fight, finally being unleashed at exactly the moment his patience ran out completely. Here's where I think the real story of this match actually lives, and it's less about pure physical capability and more about where each man's head is at heading into Minneapolis. Gunther, right now, is in a reactive, frustrated state. He's been denied his SummerSlam opportunity. He's been publicly embarrassed by a general manager he clearly views as beneath him. And every step of this conflict so far has been Gunther responding to actions taken against him, rather than dictating terms the way he's used to doing throughout his entire dominant run. That's an unfamiliar position for him, and unfamiliar positions tend to breed exactly the kind of frustration that leads to mistakes. Nick Aldis, on the other hand, is best described as a pressure cooker finally unleashed. 3 years of professional restraint, 3 years of holding back the instincts of a genuine competitor while operating in an administrative role. All coming to a head at exactly the moment institutional backing gave him full permission to let it out. That is an incredibly dangerous psychological state to walk into a match carrying not wild, uncontrolled rage but focused, patient, long-simmering intent finally given a release valve. So how does this actually play out at SummerSlam? Let's break down the realistic paths this match could take. Outcome 1. Aldis wins. Nick Aldis picks up his first official WWE match victory and follows it with a promo reclaiming the narrative, throwing every insult Gunther has ever directed at him right back in his face. This outcome leans hardest into the redemption angle we've discussed, 3 years of restraint finally paying off in the most public way possible. Outcome 2. Gunther dominates. Gunther wins convincingly, reasserting his usual aura of dominance. But the quality and intensity of the match is compelling enough that Triple H decides this rivalry deserves a proper, high-stakes rematch rather than letting it end there. This outcome keeps Gunther's dominant persona intact while still extending the storyline further. Outcome 3. No contest, leading to a cage match. The feud becomes so violent, so chaotic, that the match itself ends in a no contest, forcing Aldis to book a steel cage rematch to finally settle this properly. This outcome leans into the idea that this rivalry has become too personal and too physical for a standard match to actually resolve it, setting up an even bigger blow-off down the line. Any of these 3 outcomes would make sense given everything we've seen build toward this point, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked by any of them. Here's my honest take, and I want to know if you agree. Triple H's decision not to punish Nick Aldis, and instead hand him exactly the match he wanted, is one of the most telling pieces of this entire story. That's institutional backing. That's the head of this company effectively saying Aldis was justified. And combined with Aldis's real in-ring pedigree and 3 years of pent-up restraint finally being unleashed, this match has far more depth to it than a simple authority figure versus dominant heel storyline usually carries. Gunther should not be walking into Minneapolis assuming this is an easy night. He's facing a man who has real championship experience, real institutional support, and 3 years of frustration, finally given permission to explode. So here's what I want to know. Drop a comment right now and tell me which of these 3 outcomes you think is most likely at SummerSlam. And do you agree that Triple H's decision not to punish Aldis is actually him taking a side in this entire conflict? If this breakdown gave you a new way of looking at this match, smash that like button, drop your prediction below, and share this with every wrestling fan who's been underestimating Nick Aldis heading into Minneapolis. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because I'll be tracking every update on this rivalry all the way to SummerSlam. This is Wrestling Stands. I'll see you in the next one.